Good morning, afternoon, evening, everybody. Welcome to episode 3 of the Hot Zone. My name is Y4SO, my co-host Zephyr, joining me here as always over to my left. And for the first time, we've got a guest on the show today, our very good friend DiA. Of course, casting colleague and friend of ours coming in. We've got a ton to talk about today. DiA, welcome to the show. It's good to finally have you on. How we doing?
I'm doing well. I was reminiscing about the amount of times that I've seen Zephyr at the bottom of his chair as he came up. So I'm excited to break down some of the Pro League Split one because we have been waiting a long time for it, and that's mostly what I've been thinking of coming up to today.
Yeah, definitely a ton to cover on that front. Also, shout out to the guest gamer in the background for Dia.
Yes.
Can we little guest shot, little Overwatch 2 going on in the background? The grind never stops, right, Zephyr?
For myself right now, yes, I am a big Cassidy main the world is. I've diminished. I've went from Zarya in the last few weeks, which trust me, if we hit ranked grind, boys, I'll be there. But now
Okay.
I'm rocking Cassidy. But I have to say, Dia, it is a pleasure to meet you.
Meat.
Shut up.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to finally meet you, man. Look at the broadcast.
For those people who are watching and going, this isn't how Dia's setup normally looks. I'm elsewhere right now. I'm in California temporarily. You know, for a few days.
He's coming to hang out with me.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm
wish.
I'm gonna take
Oh.
Dia out on a date. No, I don't. I don't think Dia is in Orange County. I think you're.
No,
Yeah, you're a little
But
farther north.
I am hoping. I'm hoping to be. I'm in like the Bay Area right
Yeah,
now.
yeah. We'll hook up down here soon enough. We'll make it happen. But let's kick off this week. Of course, Pro League qualifiers wrapped up this past weekend for basically all regions. We had Series E qualifiers finish up last week. We talked about that last week. But let's zone in first here to EMEA in the results that were finalized just this past weekend. I can bring up the groups for everybody at home. You could see how things have panned out entirely with the qualifiers done and out of the way, and of course some little qualifications that we'll have to bring in here in a little bit, but we'll talk about that when it's time. But ultimately, Group A, you've got Pioneers, Ascend, Gaiman Gladiators, Forge, Phoenix, Legacy, Heroes, Turkish Stars, High Peak, Bitfix Gaming, and Three Muppets. Group B, Alliance, IG, Element 6, Horizon Union, EKO Esports, Navi, Vexed, Corpa, Incentive Arise, and Game of Drones. And then the final group, Group C, Scars, Fire Beavers, Major Pushers, Totem Esports, Eternal, which might be becoming Startified Esports. I know Zephyr was kind of on top of that reporting. FUT Esports, Le Site de France, VZD, High Society, V2. That wraps up your EMEA Pro League Split 1 teams there. I want to come to you first, Dia. First blush, after qualifiers, biggest surprises. Did this kind of go to expectations? What are your kind of thoughts here?
I was surprised at the underperformance in the last 2 weeks of Bitfix Gaming. They had a really good start, and I thought they were going to be a little bit more convincing towards the tail end of the season. So I have big question marks around them going into Pro League, though I do know, there's a fair amount of consistency there. I just wonder about how high they'll actually be able to reach in Pro League because of those last 2 weeks. Outside of that, seeing Incentive Arise make their comeback story was really fun, especially after week 1 went kind of sideways for them. V2, I would say, a similar thing. But my biggest surprise in terms of like capping off the qualifiers at the end of both EMEA and NA is the fact that EMEA felt a lot better than last season and a lot better comparatively. I'll probably touch on this a few times, but I think that a lot of our EMEA teams had more polished endgames and a better idea of how they wanted to play than their counterparts who made it through to Pro League from North America.
Zephyr, how about yourself? Biggest surprises? Did it go to expectations? Where do you kind of stand at the end of qualifiers?
Okay, so just I obviously I'll have a lot to discuss regarding the teams that were invited here in a moment, but
Sure.
Preseason qualifiers come to an end. I think the biggest kind of like major surprise for me is if you look at that list of the teams that have qualified coming through from the quals, they make up actually a third of the entire amount of the rosters that are in Pro League for this upcoming split. Obviously, that's technically 2 more than the expected 8. But still, it's a surprising portion size, especially when I personally, I know it's somewhat controversial, I don't believe in terms of skill set and where they compare, a lot of those teams match up to some of the Pro League squads that we see.
Sure.
So the fact that there is such a sizable amount of them within EMEA, it definitely defines what we might see come Pro League Split 1, because for a lot of these squads, when I look at High Peak, when I look at Bitfix Gaming, Incentive Rise, those who have had success within the preseason qualifiers with consistency, there's going to be a rude awakening the minute they actually get the opportunity to start kind of dining and dashing with their fellow competitors.
The sense I'm really getting from both of you is that it feels like it's going to be a fairly top-heavy split. We may get a couple of teams coming in, but the freshness of a lot of those squads and the amount of teams coming in that are having to play through qualifiers and aren't invited, maybe don't quite have as much experience, may create that kind of top-heavy atmosphere in EMEA. Would you agree with that, Zephyr?
I think EMEA is going to be very top-ended. I think the range of either the top 5 to top 10 is pretty much more than secured, in my opinion here. And obviously, I'm a little bit more heavy-handed regarding that call. I don't think DiA is as as dominantly favoring as me, but I mean, go ahead. What do you think, DiA?
Thank you. I think
Yeah.
Let me get in there.
DiA, feel free to use the microphone.
I think that some of the groups are going to be a lot more top heavy than others, which is not a super hot take. But I also, when I say top heavy, I'm not entirely excluding teams that made it through from preseason qualifiers from that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say with some groups more than others, but top 5 of any given groups, the top half of any, I expect to have at least 2 of the preseason qual teams in it, which is actually a pretty big amount. I think EMEA as a whole has a really good idea of how they want to play the game. And some teams are going to be super dominant, and the others are going to be right next door to the preseason qual teams. That's, yeah.
Okay, well, let's just start diving into those groups then, and we'll, of course, start with Group A. And I do want to ask, because I actually didn't ask you guys last night when I was getting your predictions. Did you order yours first, second, third, or did you just give your top 3 in any order, Zephyr?
I think it would be dumb of me to say I did list them in order, because I know for a fact I'm going to see something later on and go, ooh, no, that is definitely not. That is definitely
literally
not
less than 24 hours since he gave you these, and he's like, I don't know about that one. DiA, did you order yours that way in any kind of intentionality or no?
I did not. I'm gonna look over my picks right now.
Because I didn't. I just said these are gonna be my top 3 in whatever order. I think that's kind of the best way to approach it. Though I would say all 3 of us picking KCP across the board in Group A for EMEA, probably indicative that we think they're gonna finish first in this group.
Yeah. Yeah.
Zephyr, would you agree?
Maybe.
We all picked KCP.
I agree that we all picked KCP. I also can read. But I will say,
wow, learned something new today, guys. Zephyr can in fact read.
I'm totally gonna fight you. There's one team in my top 3 that I think is more of a threat than we give them credit for currently, and it's because we haven't had the opportunity to see them compete in a very, very long time. And in scrims, they've had their success. Obviously, that's Gaiman Gladiators, or for those who may know them other names, Free Agent Kitties, Players, or Team Gambit, right? Mm-hmm. So something that obviously I've been watching scrims, and one thing that I found incredible regarding these last kind of 2.5, 3 weeks of scrims is the fact that Gaiman have gone from literally like bottom 20th in terms of performance to top 5 consistently now, right? Mm-hmm. Arco, Liegri, Hardecki, they are back in full form, and they are starting to really adjust to the current meta. And I think KCP has had a consistent, constant level of practice scrim setup that is going to probably net them the most like secured position as number 1 in this group. But I think if Gaiman can get their shit together within the first 2 weeks, there's a very, very, we'll say 30-70 chance that they surpass them.
Can I speak to that point? Because
Yeah,
I was
get in there.
Yeah, no, you can't.
This
dude.
is a free forum. Jump in there whenever you
Lord.
see fit, Dia. Come on.
So I was thinking of Gaiman Gladiators to
Yeah.
put on there, and the reason that I didn't go with it is because of the way that I think the supposed meta changes will play with them. I think Gaiman Gladiators, especially when thinking of Artie and Hardeki, are very, very individually talented, and in a meta where people are fighting a lot, I think they'll thrive. But I think that the tendency right now that should be further accentuated by this season, especially if Catalyst ever gets fixed and is actually usable, would be one where people trying to play their own game, like heavy flanking teams, should suffer a lot more due to teams being able to capitalize on their separation. And Gaiman Gladiators, I believe, would fall into that category. Thoughts?
I
Questions?
disagree.
You did.
I think-
go on. Do you think
I
it's
think
because
you're
they
wrong.
don't separate? Do you think it's because the meta's not going to shift that way? Why do you disagree?
I personally think that Gaiman are currently adjusting themselves to the meta right now, and they have proven so in their recent scrim results, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So, while I personally think that they are still kind of blast from the past trying to adjust, but it reminds me a little bit of Game of Thrones, kind of, right? And how
Yeah.
they themselves were delayed regarding their kind of practice and being at the top peak performance for themselves, but we saw them kind of slowly regroup and come back into it. And when Gaiman goes up against that kind of aggressive tendency, that kind of separation, that nature that we do see, they are secure. And it's not perfect yet, but they are a team that I think is more than capable of finding that kind of success.
Okay, I noticed that, especially, I mean, when compared to Y4SO's picks, you went with Gaiman Gladiators over Forge. Why over Forge? Is it
One
because
second.
of their recent scrim results? Forge is Phoenix, Row, and Savage.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's Ford gang. I think Savage, Row, and Phoenix can be very good, but I don't think they have ever displayed a consistent level of results within the peak of these lobbies. I think they are cusp of top 5. Like,
Okay.
I think they go toe-to-toe with picks like Phoenix Legacy and Heroes and High Peak in this upcoming thing, rather than particularly the 3 that I've chosen there.
So does Forge feel to you like maybe a secondary dark horse pick then for this group?
Yeah.
Okay.
I chose High Pick because I find them the most interesting out of the dark horses, but for Forge,
Maybe
it's
because
similar.
they might
It's
have
a similar concept.
They might have
I-
a high peak in
All
this
right.
split.
All right, I didn't come here for this.
Anything else you really want to hit on Group A before we jump to Group B?
I do want to kind of go through and discuss what's with the Bitfix pick, dude.
They come on, man.
Defend your position, Dia.
What the hell's?
I saw that. I saw that when I was doing the predictions. I was like, damn, Dia throwing some faith to the preseason quality, which granted, we all did at least a little bit in one of the NA groups that we'll get into later, but that's for some specific reasons. But yeah, where are you at on Bitfix, Dia?
I think that Bitfix Gaming and VZD, who are also a team, spoilers, that I picked later on,
know what
and
this
their
is. You're
integration
great.
of Rampart is going
Pardon me
to
while my
ruin-
eyes roll out of my skull.
I think it's gonna change things up, guys. I mean, Rampart is already good, and I think Bitfix have a totally different read on them than VZD, which is why I'm kind of sad not to see them in the same group, because I'd love to see them compete with each other all the time, every day. But I think that with the fact that Bitfix have not only did pretty well in the first 2 weeks and were a relatively consistent team, again, lost a little bit of faith towards the end, but the fact that they're playing a different game from everyone else, and when we consider that I'm expecting in the meta that will emerge this season, teams that split up a lot to be capitalized on more easily, Bitfix don't really split up that much. They play together really well, and should find success with the fact that they're already way ahead of the changing game. Rampart for the win.
I will tell you what, I look forward to getting to the end of Split 1, bringing DiA back onto the show, and then we can all look back and feel shame for like 60% of our picks, because knowing Pro League, shit's gonna go fucking sideways, and
Yeah.
we're each of us is at least gonna have a handful of picks that we're like, wow, that one was terrible. So it'll happen. Stop shaking your fucking head, Zephyr.
I'm the prediction god, all right?
Sure.
Oh,
We'll see how that pans out. Go ahead, DiA.
I know we want to move on. I know we already have the graphic on. Very quickly, 2 sentences. Why'd you pick Heroes as your dark horse, CSO?
You have to understand, I'm still getting a feel for EMEA, so that's kind of just a shot in the dark. I really have not had the opportunity to watch a ton of scrims, so a lot of my predictions, I will qualify this. Almost all of my EMEA predictions are leaning heavier into just prior knowledge from watching international events, teams that I've gotten to interact with, and stuff like that. There's going to be a handful of my picks that are just kind of a shot in the dark. I don't really know this team enough. I haven't seen them, and a few. I think at least like 2 of my dark horses are definitely like, fuck it, let's see what this team does. Like, let's go off the wall. Let's it at the very least, like a Heroes, maybe props you two to talk about that team, and maybe me to learn a little bit more about them. But I am excited with Pro League starting this weekend to finally, like, my life is going to start being consumed by Apex, because now I'm going to be watching Series E twice a week, Oversight, what is it, Catalyst Cup or Celestial Cup?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah,
Celestial Cup. I'm gonna be watching the EMEA. I'm gonna be consuming so much Apex content every single week, because I really want to absorb as much knowledge about these teams as I can. So 50% of my content is going to be Apex. The other 50% is going to be me watching Critical Role for fun. Nice. So that's about to be my entire life outside of shows right now, and I'm looking forward to it. So that is why the Heroes pick is there. But let's jump into Group B, already up on the board. We talked about him a little bit earlier, and I want to hit DiA right off the bat with this one, because all of us picked Element 6. Not a big surprise there. Zephyr and I each picked Alliance in our top 3. Not only did you not put Alliance in your top 3, DiA, you don't even have them as a dark horse pick. Where is Alliance in this group for you?
I don't think yeah. Go ahead.
That is me. That is my go ahead. Where the hell is it, bud?
Well, and let me clarify for the folks that don't kind of how we did these picks. I asked for top 3 for each group and a dark horse. So theoretically, and this may be the answer DiA is about to give, Alliance could be at 4th or 5th, and maybe he has Game of Thrones a little higher, but their ceiling is really high. So that is certainly possible. But DiA, go ahead.
Okay, so I think Alliance are a good team. I'm gonna start there. I don't think they're a bad team. Put down the pitchforks. But I think that our squad that was top dogs, and has how do I put this?
Just hit us between the eyes. Come on. You don't have to behave yourself.
I don't think Alliance are good enough right now. I think that they're gonna be really split up. And I think that their IGLing will be their savior. I don't think their in-game mechanics will be right now.
Zephyr, your response. Get in there.
I think personally that you're on the right track.
Okay.
But I also think you underestimate the quality of Hawkes and what he can do with his ability to IGL. I have seen that man thrown onto random shitter squads and literally turned them into greatness, right? And obviously, we see the break, right? And now Monde is joining on. That's huge. That is a dedicated player who has been locked down for quite some time on Scars, who's now getting the opportunity to potentially thrive. And given the direction alongside Hockey's, that's so... I'm telling you right now, it's so goated. It might take a second to ramp, but I genuinely think Alliance will be super strong if it stays, because right now it's only for 2 weeks.
Yeah. I do think that they're all individually good players. But I think, like when you talked about splitting up Scars, I think it's kind of like in North America, splitting up G2 and going, well, these are a lot of mechanically talented players who have played together for a while, and they're just going to go their separate directions. And I don't know if Monde under new management is going to find the same amount of success when a lot of things can't be assumed because you've been playing with people for a long time. I am, however, curious. I want to extend a question to you now.
Yeah.
Based on that sort of lack of faith that I have that led you to pick Alliance, I noticed that you've also picked Vexed Gaming, and I picked Vexed Gaming because of a similar leap of faith with Matafe. Why did you?
I'm a simp for Tyler.
All right, fair enough.
Vex is my favorite fucking team.
We all know that's it. Like, that is all Zephyr
Vex
cared
is about to wipe the fucking floor with EMEA if they can fucking not dick around. Oh my god, that team is so good. Unlucky. Goated with the sauce. Tyler busting it down sexual style. White boy. I'll tell you what. And then Matafe now with the big brains to give them their fucking perspective. Vexed, like, people have to remember, like, Tyler's, like, history and where he comes from. We go from Tyler, new, gets shit on, he's like, fuck! And then we go to Young Money Guild.
Gotta turn Zephyr down, man. Damn, he's falling off.
We go to Young Money Guild, right? And Young Money Guild is Evoke plus Tyler plus one more. I'm so sorry. At the end of the day, they switch out. Unlucky comes in alongside Blast. They become Mutarium. Mutarium then goes on to become what we see the new Vex roster here, or Bosch for a little bit, which was then Blast drops down. Matafe comes in, yada, yada, yada. They've literally just been ramping. Things have just been getting better and better, right? It's like we're getting, like, it's like we're like this, right? And it's like, and like now we're like rock fucking solid.
Our audio only listeners loving this segment.
I'm telling you right now, when it comes to Vexed, underestimating, I think as long as they don't get ahead of themselves, right, and just shit the bed, that team is better. 3v3s more efficiently than anyone else in that lobby. It's just stupid mistakes that they make occasionally. Everything else, like I said, Goated with the sauce, busting it down sexual style, quirked up white boy. So good.
I think the only risk with Vexed, as opposed to other teams, is that where other teams might like play really aggressive and throw games, I think if Vexed don't find a couple wins in the first 3 weeks, that they could start playing not to lose as opposed to win, because they are all players who are still
unproven.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, sort of on that.
I like that perspective. That's good. That's good. Damn, you're good.
So let me do a solid real fast for our audio only listeners. Apologies, we didn't do it for Group A, but just for reference, the picks here for Group B. I took Alliance, Element 6, Navi, and then IG as my dark horse picks. Zephyr took Element 6, Vexed, Alliance with Echo, or EKO, Esports as his dark horse, and DiA took Vexed, Horizon Union, Element 6, and Game of Drones as his dark horse. I do want to give my quick point on the Alliance thing. Mine was just heavily on by how impressed I was by Hockey's at Champs. Hockey's was one of the most standout players at that event, especially of the ones that I didn't really know as much going into international play, and Hockey's was phenomenal. at Champs. I was so impressed, was really the backbone of that Alliance squad in their 8th place finish there. And, I'm excited to see what this team can do this split. I think it is going to be a very compelling split in EMEA. I'm curious to see, it would seem, based on what we were talking about earlier, DiA, you seem to not be as sold on the top-heavy mentality. While you may have like those maybe 3 big squads at the top, the kind of melting pot below that will make it maybe a little less top-heavy. I'm curious to see kind of which, you or Zephyr is a little more correct on that front. I think it's going to be interesting, but I definitely have my eyes on Alliance going into this split. I think it's going to be fun to watch them. And this group is really interesting when you see that Alliance, IG, and Element 6 are all in the same fucking group together.
I mean, this is the hardest group, right?
Yes, this is the group of death, as we typically coin it in esports.
Yeah.
I do want to touch on it because, let's not run away before we get to dark horses.
Sure.
Element 6, I think by and far is the team that, when we separate biases, when we pull away from current expectations, just is the most likely team to walk away with a first place finish in EMEA for Split 1.
Sweeney scares me, man. No cap, I'm actually afraid of him.
I know.
And yeah,
you say this every time we talk about Swinny. You go, Zephyr, Swinny actually strikes fear into me.
Yeah, and I just don't think he's. If his team does lose anything, he's just not going to let it happen. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah, Swinny really he's really terrifying, and more than that, he's already proven that he knows how to pull teams together that are struggling to function. Probably because he's so scary. So, yeah, they're gonna do really well. I want to stop talking about it before he realizes and DMs me.
Swinny's gonna come in here and beat shit out of you. Yeah, that guy is impressive, and it's a shame that we haven't really ever, this whole COVID thing that happened with Champs really kind of neutered what we got to learn and understand about EMEA, and what was 69 IQ, Element 6, yada yada, never really got the chance to have that full story throughout last year of ALGS. And I am hoping now, because Slayers, Life, and Swinny, they've all been putting in the fucking grind, right? And they're redefining the meta slightly, as well as they just seem to have such a more steady grasp of everything right now in comparison to any other team. They may not finish first every single time, but they're a team that you will consistently see within that top 5 regularly who will dominate, right?
DiA, how much of your Horizon Union top 3 pick was influenced by the recent signing of Urban?
A decent amount. A decent amount. I have to say, Horizon Union was a difficult. It was why I was kind of nervous when you guys asked about it. It was a difficult third to pick, and it was mostly based on the fact that I don't think that Alliance would necessarily take that third spot, and I also don't think Game of Thrones, is my dark horse, has the necessary success conditions to automatically take it. So, yes, the recent signing was, I think, net good for them. I don't think my prediction changes without it.
Okay. Fair enough. Any final thoughts before we jump forward to Group C?
All right, you gotta explain, why the hell is Game of Thrones your dark horse pick?
I was gonna ask you why EKO was on yours.
Dude, what the heck is that? Also, can I also say respect to Y4SO for giving a bone to IG?
Yeah,
thank you.
I gotta do
kind
it.
of deserve it.
Somebody had to do it. I saw all of your guys' predictions, and I was just like, damn. Nobody on the IG train here today. I was like, we'll give them something.
They're just in that weird state of limbo right now where they're not good enough to be the top 5, but they're not so dark horsey that they're gonna find decent success, but they're not gonna really show up, in my opinion, unless something crazy happens.
Low floor, high maybe high ceiling.
Yeah, they're very middle of the pack right now, who might slip into top 4 if they have really good ones. But
okay,
why Game of Thrones?
Defend Game of Thrones. DiA, go.
I picked Game of Thrones because I think that their performance in the preseason qualifiers was not. There's a word. that when something reflects your identity.
Mhm.
It wasn't representative of how they'll be able to play in lobbies where fragging should be a lot less important. I
Interesting.
remember a lot of times where I would be watching the preseason quals and I would go, Game of Thrones, not a bad position, good way of fighting. I like the way they're moving, and they would just get inted by a squad and then die. And it happened a lot. It happened to a lot of teams, but Game of Thrones is one of those teams that I think it happened to disproportionately in the preseason qualifiers who still managed to make it through, and they should look a lot better in Pro League.
Fair.
Okay. Zephyr, defend EKO Esports.
Okay, so EKO kind of comes out of the woodwork randomly. Zuni and Bardo jump onto this team after they had recently been playing with Mr. Arthur to form Eichmann God, right? And this was a very like small period of time for like 3 weeks where Eichmann God existed
Mm-hmm.
before they jumped onto Echo. That team, albeit the difference, Mr. Arthur versus HTP Herald right now, was insanely dominant
Mm-hmm.
within pro league scrims and general practice for being just the hodgepodge of those individuals, right? I mean, we
Mm-hmm.
talked about Zuni and Bardo previously with Yolu, who went on to play with El Licite de France, and they were back on Cooling Gaming, etc. They have experience at being at the top of their game here, and they displayed it for the soft moment that they were on that particular team here about a month ago. We really haven't seen much of Echo in the meanwhile, and I think they're definitely a team that if they can display the same level of success that they have replicated elsewhere, especially with Zuni and Bardo, that they can go on to do the exact same thing here in Pro League for this first split, right?
Okay.
I'll take it. Very, very, yeah. I understand why they're a dark horse, right? There's
Yes.
a lot of risk involved in that, but I see the
Yes.
argument.
Okay.
Just
Well,
like I see your argument with Game of Thrones, Raphael.
Thank you.
I tip my hat to you. One legend to another.
all right, let's go to Group C here. For the audio-only listeners here, our picks, mine, Scars, FUT Esports Fire Beavers with Dark Horse High Society. Zephyr hitting Fire Beavers, Major Pushers, Licite de France with Scars / VZD. We'll allow the secondary pick there on the Dark Horse. And then DiA hitting Scars, VZD, High Society, and then Fire Beavers for the Dark Horse. Zephyr, where do you want to start here?
This is I want to like preface this group with this was probably the toughest group for me to really put together some options here, because especially with the Rostermania that we may discuss in a moment.
Yes.
No one directly stands out and has a level of consistency within this group other than Fire Beavers and Major Pushers. Everything else has been very, very transient in my opinion.
Okay.
Fire Beavers signed someone today, right?
Fire Beavers fired. Fire Beavers is Fire Beavers now. Officially.
Yeah, I saw a whole team announcement kind of thing.
Okay.
Today.
Yeah,
Wait, hold on.
that's what it was.
Let's,
that's
we
what it was.
have Google.
Yeah. It was the Oil Rain.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which
yeah.
is I think let's see. Fire Beavers officially becomes an org today. 2 hours ago they announced 9 Impulse, Taskmaster, and Clausy as a substitute with, of course, Oirin as well there.
Yeah.
That is a fantastic team. And I think it's
I-
one that will display the most success in this group.
I think that announcement swaps High Society to a dark horse and puts Fire Beavers in
Okay.
top 3.
I'll allow it. I'll allow
Thank
it.
Thank you. For those of you visual listeners, just like cover your eyes and pretend.
Yep.
Yeah. I noticed you put major pushers,
Yeah.
Zephyr and Y4SO. You put FUT. I'd like to start with Y4SO and just like you talked about, it's based on past familiarity. So
Perfect.
what sort of stood out here? Yeah.
I mean, FUT, I haven't seen a ton. This was definitely, like, in terms of all 3 groups, the one that I had, like, the least information about.
Yeah.
Scars, seen a ton. They even came out and played in in Series E, I think a little while back. I think we had him on for a couple weeks to come and play. Super impressed with them. Fire Beavers, that's definitely a team that I've gotten to see a lot. FUT is a little bit of a shot in the dark because looking at the other teams, below like Scars and Fire Beavers, a lot of these I actually don't know a ton. I was leaning on the DiA High Society pick in the top 3 for my dark horse. So honestly, FUT is probably, I would characterize, at least from my knowledge, as a dark horse pick, but I wasn't really knowledgeable a ton on this group. Group C was definitely the one that I had the least background on here outside of Scars and Fire Beaver. So FUT, little bit of a shot in the dark there, to be completely honest.
Okay, yeah.
The worst shot in the dark. I mean,
Thank you, Zephyr.
It isn't. Flavor of the month, etc. I mean, that's a team that hosts like a very large spectrum of pro background, and who knows how they'll perform, right?
Zephyr, why do you have VZD as a maybe dark horse pick, but Licite de France as a top 3?
He's on that hype train.
Because shut the hell up. I'm not as flustered by this Rampart pickup as you are, all right? I see through the lies, all right? I see through the fear. First of all, I think a lot of what VZD were able and permitted to do in what we saw out of them in preseason qualifiers was heightened by the quality of those lobbies, or the lack thereof, right? I think in comparison, where I agree a little bit more with you regarding Bitfix Gaming, I think VZD, Zane and VJ are incredible fraggers who are going to have very hot and heavy potential. But I think they don't have the level of flexibility that we saw in preseason qualifiers, and they're going to be reined in more, right? And that doesn't adhere to the same play style, which was hyper aggressive, lots of space taken, not even a 3-man setup, just kind of all over the place, dominant, right? And I don't have a good read for how does VZD fare when they're more back up against the wall, having to contain themselves and play more at a reduced tempo. I think they're definitely one of the strongest teams. It's just I don't have that confidence as much as you do because of that.
Sure. That makes sense. But you do have that confidence when it comes to Licite de France.
Yes. I think in a very similar way to Game of Drones and how you describe them, I think the way that Licite de France approaches those lobbies and preseason qualifiers, or at least what we saw, especially given the background of their experience, YOLO coming in, same kind of concept I brought you with Echo in that previous roster, all that combined makes a team that I genuinely think you put them in Pro League, you give them the opportunity to play on the same kind of standard and level, they will find success.
Okay.
I think pushing for top 3 is something that should be at the top end of their goals. And given that this lobby is very kind of insecure in how each kind of roster is, it's the perfect opportunity for Licite de France to swoop in and have that success.
I see that. I got too little time with them, I think, to be as confident as you were. But I could easily see them, feeling like a high society to me had I had a little bit more exposure to the roster there. I know that also Y4SO and I both have Scars. This is a very heavy group focused on you, Zephyr. I'm very sorry. But you haven't put Scars in your top 3.
Thank you, DiA. You asked the question that I was going to ask.
Because I don't exactly know how they're going to fare with this new roster. I think like Alliance, you bring Monday on, that's a kind of like a one-off change, switch out, fragger, etc. For Scars, Hiraka's coming through, right, on top
Still
of that.
Can't say his name. Go ahead. Sorry. Yeah.
God damn it!
DiA's like, I'm on the show. I've got my shot. It's time to bully Zephyr on a Thursday afternoon.
Bitch. We're cool friends, me and this guy. Let me quickly pull up our.
We all
cool
get
photo
along
we
here
took
real
together.
Yeah,
Me and Haraka. And
Okay.
Chaco.
Okay, sorry, you were saying, yeah.
I genuinely don't know how that roster is going to adjust here as much as I am more like, say, confident when I talk about, say, Alliance. I think they are a team that is filled with a wealth of background and experience who, if they mesh well, can be up there top 3, like you guys are currently describing. But it's not information I have. This change is coming through literally clock at the strike of 11 here. The minute before the week is going to begin. It's going to be very rough for these first few weeks, if not potentially a very rough split one as a whole, if they don't just have that immediate chemistry. Their talent alone gives them their current dark horse slot right now for myself.
Okay.
I think the thing that changed that for me that did push me over the line was just that I think Kiarka is really talented. He's very malleable as well, which I think I can't say
so
for
soft.
a lot of. I can't say that for a lot of other pro players, but I do think that he adapts really well under pressure. He's a player that I'd like to have on my team, especially with a good IGL. Taishin is obviously very talented, and I think that those two specifically should combo really well together. Oh, look, everybody's friends.
Aww.
Yeah.
Me posing. It's a shame that we see
I
AIM
love-
go down super quickly, by the way.
I love the fact is with the AIM boys wearing the Element 6 jersey.
I wasn't gonna say anything.
Yeah.
That's
It was
great.
funny. Sineska like came up to me and he's like, I posted about like, you know, you do the esports thing, you go to big events and you cry out for free jerseys, and most of the time,
Bro,
and
I'm
so-
still like trying to low key get KCP to send me stuff. I like
Yes.
made friends with a bunch of their staff, and they're super awesome, and I love the team. And then I was also like, you guys also have sick verts. I was like, damn, I could use some.
Yeah, so Sineska hooked me up that pro league day at Champs, and he gave
hell
it to
yeah.
me, and so of course I donned it, and for good reason too. I love Element 6, and I'm so glad that they're now going on. Yeah, what's up, Dia?
I was just looking for my Shakespeare book so I could relate to you.
Donned.
I donned. He giveth me the T-shirt.
So I donned it. Yeah.
Oh man.
Leave it to the theater boy to bring up Shakespeare.
I doff my company.
All right.
Let's move on. Let's get out of here.
any final points y'all want to hit on Group C
I
before we
think,
jump into the Rostermania stuff?
I think y'all are underrating major pushers. Yace's opinions aside, given his lack of EMEA knowledge.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just get
Doesn't
run
mean
over.
shit.
Fuck off.
Hey, so doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about.
Dia,
I
this is
I
a
think-
team that has seen massive success, and they got screwed over royally by like certain, Russian things. Obviously, like they're still very, very good.
I think they'll do well in Split 2. I don't think they'll do well in Split 1. I think major pushers, I believed in them a lot last year, and they followed a similar trajectory where
All right.
I think that they had growing pains at the beginning, and I think it's enough to keep them out of top 3.
Okay. All right.
So
No big deal.
that'll wrap our prediction discussion on Group C. But let's talk Rostermania. This is something that you very much wanted to
Yeah.
talk about, Zephyr, because
Oh my gosh.
it was honestly a minor discussion we've already had on the show, because we talked about the entire G Dolphin situation following
God.
week 1 of the Pro League qualifiers in EMEA. Of course, G Dolphin ended up forming a new roster and qualifying with the new roster. And
Right.
roster fluctuations are certainly not a strange thing to see in Apex Legends esports, but we have apparently seen a very high volume of that here in the run-up to the start of Pro League in EMEA. Where do you want to start on that?
It's definitely interesting because like we can go through most of these just one at a time, because I
Go
think
for it.
obviously the big one to start off with is Alliance.
Mm-hmm.
Monday joins on with them, and that's probably the one that I think is going to reap the most rewards regarding what we currently see out
Okay.
of EMEA. And then as we kind of go down here, obviously Urban has literally just joined on with Horizon Union. That's a huge change. Lifen being this kind of new pickup for Element 6, albeit less recent, more the last month or so. That's a huge change. Lufka's now part of Ascend, got ripped off from Incentive Arise literally just like a few days ago. They had to qualify with literally like last minute with Horizon to make their way into Pro League, and now Lufka's with Ascend? which he's very good, and that roster is going to blow up now because of that. Right. My Echo discussion where they ripped from Eichmann Gott, right? Let's see. Who else is just absolutely simping with the changes? Obviously. Oh yeah, Incentive Arise is no longer Incentive Arise. They're currently called LFO Forever right now, but I'm pretty sure they're about to be signed. But Horizon is now back in Pro League, my lord. Oh my gosh, what happened with Firepower? Firepower gets ripped to shreds because NECA's an ass. And he's toxic as shit, and he tries to kick some player out.
Did DiA just like pass a kidney stone or something over there?
Like,
Rough,
holy
that was
shit!
rough to watch.
And then tricks, and oh my god, he sends him that message, and he literally says, "Such a shame you're never gonna be seeing Pro League, right?" Oh, and then little did he fucking know he'd never see Pro League. Fucking yoink. Trickster pulls the fucking Giga Chad move and says, "Not today. Neither of us are going to Pro League now. I quit."
You know the EMEA drama is saucy when I've heard about it before Zephyr or DiA have told me about it. Because we get into prep for the show, Zephyr's like, "Oh, did you hear about this?" I'm like, "Yeah, I did, dude. I saw the fucking tweets. This shit was crazy."
It traveled across the ocean.
Yeah, it came down here to South County. I was like, "What in the hell?"
I mean, technically, it hits Texas first if we're going by distance, so it makes sense most of the time. Think about it. All right, but as you guys can tell, obviously, that's just a very simple kind of like update for what you see right now. Oirin being another one that I just remembered from Fire Beavers. Obviously, there are so many changes within EMEA, but the big difference here, especially as we're about to get into North America, is I feel like a lot of the North American changes were more so solidified kind of during the beginning of the summer or kind of at the back end of champs, rather than EMEA, which is literally taking place right now, which is terrifying because it gives me like why I think Scars is in the current position that they are, right? Or why they right?
Yeah. I think it's going to make for just a lot of very interesting variants, at least in the early on in the split. Yes. I can't imagine that continues into the back half of Split 1 outside of a couple of isolated teams. But at the very least, the first couple weeks in EMEA are going to be really weird because there's these teams, even the big boys that you mentioned, like Ascend, still trying to sort things out. And a couple of them will hit the ground running based on just the talent level and the lobbies that they play in. Yes. But there's going to be teams still trying to figure out what their play style is or how do they fit this new member into the squad. And it's going to make things compelling at the very least.
One of my favorite things about EMEA as a region, especially their top talent, is that unlike in NA, very few of their talent got there because they had fun rolling kids in tournaments for $1,000, because there's no tournaments for $1,000. So they just are insane at the game, and decide that other people should know that and that they should be like. I think it makes EMEA's top talent really exciting to watch. Yeah, they're even if they end up being at comparable skill levels, I think the talent pool that emerges in EMEA is very, very hardworking, and even with Rostermania, a lot less delicate. I like it.
It's gonna be interesting.
I agree.
Speaking of North America, why don't we jump to NA, talk Split 1 groups on the screen for you right now. For the audio only listeners, let's just run through it real fast. Group A: Dark Zero Esports, NRG, Team Liquid, CLG, G2 Esports, MPL, Complexity Gaming, Rack Attack, Team Smiley, and Bots. Group B has got Furia Esports, TSM Cloud9, Elevate, Atlanta Premier, Sign Us Please, Tripods, Esports Arena, Season or SZN, BR Demons, and then Group C: Hunter Thieves, Space Station, Optic, Luminosity, Sentinels, Oxygen Esports, The Guard, FaZe Clan, Slept On, and First Attempt. Let's hit final thoughts, maybe overall thoughts on qualifiers. DiA, I'll let you go first on this one as we got our final qualifiers in this past weekend.
Really chaotic, insane qualifiers.
Yeah.
And I talked about this a little bit earlier. I think that EMEA had some really consistent quals, and with NA, there were some games that I was like, I don't even know what's happening. I think it was week 2, game 1. I lost my mind that we had actually just witnessed this, and it felt like that happened quite a bit. I think that a lot of the teams that we have coming out of Pro League quals are big mechanical lads and are going to encounter a lot of difficulty. They should encounter a lot of difficulty. I don't know if they will. They should encounter a lot of difficulty going up against people who've actually been playing this game for a really long time. It should make the first couple weeks of even NA Pro League just as chaotic. But I do think that their mechanical ceiling is super, super high, and it's why I've listed some of them. Yeah.
I would caveat that with maybe one team, ESA.
Yep.
I think ESA is definitely one of the few that I would say is obviously between all of us. It's such a shame that they had to be in preseason qualifiers to begin with, and one of the ones that are going to walk into it with a level of more what we expect to see.
I'd include Rack Attack and First Attempt in that sort of not as chaotic area as well. ESA still, of course, separate because they should have naturally been in there anyway. But Rack Attack and First Attempt, I think, will have the best time early in the season.
I love Rack Attack too.
Yeah.
Rack Attack!
I will say, and I'm a big Rack and Issue fan, I am not very high on that roster, if I'm being completely honest. Sure. I think that they will be. I think the consistency, and they probably will come in just fine to start the season. I would agree with you guys there, especially the experience on this roster with Rack, Impulse, and Bowser. Right, that's a veteran-heavy team. I just think their ceiling is not very high. I would be surprised, and this is a group that could see a lot of fluctuation. We'll kind of dive a little deeper into it here momentarily, but I would be surprised if Rack Attack finished top 5 in this group.
You're crazy. You're crazy.
You're telling me with Dark Zero, NRG, TL, and CLG, and
I think they might finish
G2.
I think they'd finish 5th.
Yeah, I think they finished 5th.
I think they finished 5th.
Who do you think finishes behind them of that group of big squads? Because there's 6 there.
I'm just gonna say who I think places above them. I think Dark Zero, NRG, Team Liquid, and CLG place above them.
I would
you
trade
think they
CLG
beat out
for G2.
You think they beat out G2 in complexity, DiA?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. I mean, hey,
for me, CLG
understandable.
Yes.
Understandable. I am not as high on them. I would love to see them perform. I am a huge Rakinishu fan. I have been since literally the day that I started covering Apex Legends. But I'm not quite buying it. I will. Oh, he's wonderful. He is an absolute sweetheart. I love Rakinishu. I would say my biggest surprise of qualifiers, and granted, they were going to qualify on points coming into this final week, almost guaranteed, but was the fact that it took until week 4 for season to win it. I was actually surprised that they had to play all 4 qualifiers, because this is a team that has been playing together for a while. They were playing in Pro League last year as XSET, so it's kind of surprising that it took them all the way until week 4 to secure that first place spot. I think of the teams coming through qualifiers, them and Esports Arena, I think are my top echelon of the preseason qual teams. I don't think many folks should be surprised by that. How high can they go? Not quite sure, especially because that is a very interesting group in Group B. But let's just run it here. I'm going to bring up Group A for everyone at home, and we'll just start running through our predictions for Group A. I took NRG Dark Zero Complexity with Team Liquid as my dark horse. Zephyr taking NRG TL Dark Zero with G2 as his dark horse, and DiA took NRG Dark Zero Team Liquid with CLG as his dark horse. Where do we want to start, gents?
I'd love to hear a little bit more about your complexity pick, not because I think it's wrong.
Sure.
But just because I think it's interesting to not include Team Liquid for complexity, and I want to hear the difference between those rosters for you.
I'm kind of in a similar place right now as I was going into champs last year, and I would say I'm even lower on Liquid now with Gilderson's leaving. I think Gilderson's was the best part of Liquid at the end of last season, and Gilderson's has left and kept that going with NRG, because NRG has been hands down the best team in North America since champs. I don't think anybody can argue that. NRG has been incredible, whether it's in Esports Arena Pro Night, Oversight, elsewhere. They have been so good, and Gilderson's, I think, is a big part of that, though. Of course, credit to Sweet, credit to Nathan, talented roster, but Guild has come in and fit right in with that roster, and so I think Gilderson's is a big part of the success, what Team Liquid had going for them at the end of last year. And I just have not been incredibly impressed by them over the summer. The floor for that team is high because, again, veteran experience, Nocturnal and Fun, super good players, but I'm not just really buying all that high on this Liquid roster. Zephyr, you want to jump in there?
I think at least this is my perspective on why I throw TL into the mix more so.
Sure.
It's when I don't directly try to compare them, up against the energies in this lobby, or even Dark Zero, who once they get adjusted will be just terrifying, right? But more so, if I start breaking it down literally, like, okay, what's my opinion on Team Liquid versus CLG? And I kind of run those through one by one in my head. And I would say, while they aren't like super dominant over the majority of the rest of these teams, I think they put up better results more consistently than the kind of flash in the pan that we sometimes see out of those other rosters, right? And I actually like the complexity pick, because I think out of all the teams that do sit below them, they're one of the few squads that can potentially rival with that same level of play if they are in their best form.
DiA, anything you want to add on the Liquid front?
I just think Sex is really good.
Fair.
And sex, and I was like, yeah, of course, man.
And I think that Gilderson's was also really good. But again, I'm expecting the meta to change, and maybe it doesn't, and in which case I'll be very wrong about this, but I think that a team with a coach like Hodzik should do better in a changing environment. That's what pushes them to the top for me. Yeah.
And I will say, like, complexity is probably my most difficult pick to defend of like all of my North American picks. Do still have like Team Liquid as a dark horse, and I do agree with you on that Hodzik point. I think Hodzik has been great and has done a fairly good job all over his tenure of really kind of getting the most out of his rosters, and I think he will do the same with TL. But I guess I'd like Luxford's fit with complexity here, and I'm hoping that we can kind of see the return of the complexity that I really loved, about a year ago. So we'll see on that front. Where are you at on G2, Zephyr? Because I'm I'm just like, ever since the roster, since Gent left, I'm just like, I don't know, man.
It's got to be an EU carry angle for you, right, Zephyr? They have Chaotic now, and so they win. Is that
Bro, they brought in my boy Chaotic, EMEA talent in North America. All these kids are about to get shit on. I don't care that they don't have IGL prowess or brains to work with. They just shoot better. There's a reason they're Dark Horse guys, though. Like, I would say it's when I look at them in comparison to teams like CLG or like Complexity, obviously those teams are kind of that middle of the pack area where I think they're going to place better than G2 on average. But G2 just has this unnatural fervor with the three that they have, Result, Designful, Chaotic, to just literally out of nowhere just come through slap happy on like week 3 and shit stomp. And it's like, where the fuck was that? Right? And then they never do it again. Right? And it's like, that's something I fear from this roster, and it's the reason why they are like the darkest of dark horse picks for me, probably across everything that I've put out here.
Yeah, I feel like the pickup of Chaotic Munch makes G2's style work better when it works, but it doesn't make it work more often.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you have a follow up for that? Because if not, I have a question for you.
No, I mean, I would say I'm probably in a similar boat to what you're saying there, Dia. It bums me out to see that the G2 roster that we've seen for so long is now, no longer together, of course, with Gent leaving, because I was a huge G2 fan and such a fan of watching that team play, and just like the incredibly high skill ceiling and fragging potential of that squad when they were on their game was so much fun to watch. And also the fact, too, that I look at the team that Gent has gone to join, and I am not buying any stock in tripods in this split, at least. And that bums me out because I think Gent is a super talented player, so we'll see. But not really much to add. Hit me with the question. What do you got?
You're a Series E stan.
Yes. Sure.
No love for CLG here. What's going on?
No. So CLG is actually like my fourth place pick.
Okay.
Yeah.
CLG is just outside of my top three. I think Mamba has been a great fit for the roster with of course, Y4SO stepping down. I'm not sure that we're going to see the return of Split 2 CLG from last year, because if the folks at home don't remember, CLG was terrible in Split 1. And then they found their game in that offseason and were one of the biggest surprises of Split 2 last year in Pro League. They just shot to the top of their group and were really, really good. And they were, interestingly enough, when I did my YouTube video, I did my picks in a similar way for that split. CLG was my dark horse pick there, and they popped off. So they're not a dark horse for me. It wouldn't surprise me in the slightest for CLG to jump into the top three. I think they're really, really good. And especially because this is kind of, it's a wide open group outside of the top two, honestly, for me. I think Dark Zero and NRG should be pretty much locks for top two in this group. I know you guys are high on Team Liquid, and I understand it, but I think outside of that top two, I think there can be a ton of movement, especially because I'm pretty low on G2. Complexity certainly can have that variance, though I'm buying in a little bit on them, and I'm not confident in Rack Attack, so.
I do want to say one thing.
Go.
We base a lot on Dark Zero due to the fact that they're double back-to-back current champions, etc. All
Sure.
this, yada, yada. And obviously we look at Oversight recently, and they have begun to kind of find their mesh within the North American meta, and I think they are going to be successful, and that's why they do, optimally end up in my top three. But it was very close because I don't have the utmost confidence in Dark Zero entirely.
I want to admit something. I want to admit something here on the podcast.
Do it.
Go ahead.
I, as somebody who watches a lot of Apex and who considers this basically my living, I'm picking this purely on faith because I watched both those tournaments that Dark Zero played for their World Championship / playoff win. I don't know how they do it. Guys, I have no idea.
Jen Burton, dude, come on.
I have no
the power
idea
of Jen Burton,
how
baby.
this roster, like literally, they can look like they're doing mid in a tournament, and then they just win, and it's like something just clicks for them. I don't understand it, and I'm not going to pretend to understand it. So Dark Zero, yeah, they're going to hit top two. Yep. How are they going to do it? I don't know.
Who the fuck knows? I will. Hey, credit to Mellowcrit in chat. I don't mean to be a hater, but I don't think I'd put Dark Zero in my top three. I don't think that's like a crazy opinion.
Not crazy.
I think it is understandable for folks to be like, they're the ALGS champions. Of course they should be top two. But I think it's also understandable to be like, hey, they're moving to NA. How well they're going to adjust to the meta and just like coming out to play here. I think these are understandable concerns about the team, and they could finish outside of the top four, right? They could have a rough first split. I don't think that is like outside of the realm of possibility, but I'm leaning on veteran talent. Jen Burton, considered like one of the best controller players in the world. Like, this is a very talented team, and also I just think this group is a little wide open, in my opinion, outside of that top 2, top 3.
I think they're going to place in 10th for the first 4 or 5 weeks, and then they're just going to win the group. And I'm not going to know how it happened.
That is exactly it.
I have no idea. Also, because we're shouting out chat, Mello made a good point that elaborated a little bit more on the Team Liquid pick earlier as well. That like Sykes brings a different side to the roster than Gilderson's, and should enable a Team Liquid that still looks good and still performs well, but in a different style than we've seen previously. Thanks, Mello.
I think that's fair. Anything else you guys want to hit on Group A?
No.
Champs was weird, and I don't like basing a lot of my opinions on Dark Zero off of Champs because they won in Game 9, which that is more of it's more of a critique against match point format than it actually is regarding the success of that roster, because I think this is just I hate saying this, but like if they go that late and we're on like Game 9 or 10, and then someone who swooped in like during Game 7 to get to their match point and then come in with a win, I don't have that same level of like, oh, they're super dominant, right? We're going to talk about a team that is super dominant as we approach Group B, and who should have potentially, though, really walked away with that one. One that I see is apparently not on DiA's list.
Oh my! Oh, I'm supposed to put Furia down? No, man, no.
Yeah. I'm very curious. I have a sneaking suspicion that DiA and I might have like a similar reason, because I will say, while I didn't order a lot of my picks, I do have Furia as my 3rd place pick for this group, and I'm curious to see if DiA and I are of the same mind on Furia in this group. So why don't we start there, DiA?
Hold on. For the people at home, really quickly.
Ooh, yes.
Yeso's picks are TSM, Atlanta Premier, and Furia, with his dark horse being Esports Arena. Mine being Furia, TSM, and Atlanta Premier, with dark horse pick Esports Arena. And DiA being the black sheep here, with his picks being Esports Arena, TSM, Atlanta Premier, with a dark horse being Season.
Yeah, I just realized that we have the exact same picks, Zephyr. I didn't even notice last night when I was putting this together. So, yes, those are our picks. DiA, why is Furia not there?
Furia is not there because I think they did really well at Champs, because everybody was trying to catch up, and there was a lot of chaos, and that favored them. And I think that since then, they just haven't been as good. I think I've seen one too many tournaments where Furia still places well, they're still placed top 5 or something, but because they're trying to play the same style they played at Champs, and everybody knows it now, so they just kill them, and then Furia gets no points from then on. And I think that's going to happen a lot, because I don't know if Furia is going to adjust, and I don't think that they want to. Thoughts?
I will say that is kind of a similar spot to where I was, DiA. The fact that I think, and it's not that they lack talent. I think Furia is very good. His Watson's a very talented player, but I do think a big reason why they were successful at Champs was because they were breaking the meta a little bit, doing something that essentially no team at the tournament was doing, and they really took the lobby by storm with that style, and we're very successful with it. But the amount of time since then, the way the meta has shifted, that so many teams have kind of caught up on that style and understand how they play. I do think that surprise factor that they had in Champs is very much gone, and that does hurt them. But I still think the talent level is really good.
Yeah, I think that like on a global level. Sorry, Zephyr, I'll pass it to you after this. I think on a global level, or a regional level, at the very least, Furia was like guys who ape you with shotguns. Like they did really well. They just wiped the floor with a lot of teams, because they just run in there. You're gone.
Yeah.
But now everybody knows that if somebody's running you with a shotgun, this applies to any FPS game almost. You just got to back up and keep shooting them. And I think that everybody's adapted to Furia's style that is very shotgunny right now. And unless Sea Lion changes something about that roster that I think is inherent to the players, they're gonna have a really difficult
Zephyr
time.
is dying to jump in
Zephyr,
here.
please,
Get in there.
please.
Come on,
I
Zephyr, please.
swear, this is that. All of that is exactly why Furia will finish at the tippity top. Right?
Okay.
That
Okay.
lack of faith. All right.
Okay.
That is a team who has the flexibility to change on a dime, and it's the reason why we saw them succeed at the back end of Split 2 Year 2 into playoffs, into champs, when we made that change up with his Watson, obviously, yada, 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 right?
Sure.
Right? Personally, I think Furia is a roster that tends to hold what is near and dear to them in terms of their success close to the chest, right? And it has been displayed particularly in their strategies regarding metagaming. And it is not something I discuss very often because most teams don't fucking do it. It's monkey see, monkey do most of the time in Apex Legends, right? Furia be strong. Guess what? Now we have the entire fucking lobbies in ranked and plat pretending to be Furia. It's terrifying.
Z Davis
right?
is the biggest Furia fan after champs.
Yes, Z Davis. I personally think there are so many options for breaking this meta apart, and we have seen it in other regions. It is stupid to not think that we don't see Furia capitalize on the last moment where it counts, where it is necessary to place or be as dominant at the top of their groups. They've shown in scrims before that they tend to kind of blow it off and disrupt the personal perception of them before where it actually counts. Because when it actually counts, Fury show up. They can literally meander their ass through groups because they know the real prize is all the way at the end, playoffs. And then out of nowhere, we all wake up and are fucking questioning why weren't we on top of Furia this whole fucking time.
Go, Dia. You might have the same question I have.
It's not even a question, it's a counterpoint. I understand where your opinion is coming from, because a lot of things did change for Furia just in time for them to find immense success. And I think that where I don't have that same amount of faith that you do, but still don't fault you for it, is that I think that with the roster and coaching changes that happened simultaneously for Furia, they showed us, yes, a roster that can change very quickly when you change half the pieces. And I don't know if without changing those pieces, again, without pulling out a new roster, or without C-Line demonstrating some amount of control over the roster and changing that style completely, whether they can actually achieve the same results. Because, while I think we saw Furia do really well at champs, and while I think that C-Lion is very intelligent, what I don't know is whether C-Lion actually has a handle on the players in front of them, or whether they went, you know what, really aggressive styles work well, and all the players went, we love playing aggressive because we're very mechanically talented, so it just worked. If the meta requires them playing something different, I don't know if Furia can do it, because I don't know if the players are willing to change to C-Lion's plans, and if C-Lion even has plans for them.
I think the one caveat to that point is that there is a meta breaker comp, in my opinion, that's even more aggressive than what we currently see, that I think Furia could pull out.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
I think it would bolster already what they define themselves as, that entity that we saw at champs, but even more so capitalize on their strengths.
Okay.
Zephyr, I want to confirm something before I ask this question. Yeah. Is Furia your first place pick for this group? Because you kind of said that earlier. Do you have them first place in this group?
It's a really strong toss-up, but I think just due to the history, in my opinion, yes. But I also think, I will preface this with, I think it comes down to...
Because the question that I have is that you talk about the meandering, but showing up when the time is right. It's playoffs. Like, it seems counterintuitive that you're like, they're my best team, but also they may kind of blow off the split and fuck around.
I think there's a difference. I think there's a difference here in that I think they are a team that will exude the most success, but what they consider success is going to be very different than what TSM or Atlanta Premier or whatever considers success.
Okay.
And I think when we get to playoffs or something, that's when like we reapproach this discussion when they're sitting in ninth, and I say the exact same thing you're hearing from me right now.
Okay. Yeah, I think that because Yeah, looking towards the regular season, I think Furia will have a difficult time.
Okay. There's a ton more to talk about here, and this is honestly like a group that's really fun to dig into.
Mm-hmm.
TSM, I think TSM is going to be pretty good. People love to dog on them in between splits. It seems seemingly every year. I don't get why, because I think the shift away from Hal playing the Valkyrie, giving that back to Verhulst when it makes sense is really good. I've only heard great things about Raven, by the way. I actually got the opportunity to talk to Verhulst
Raven's
a little
great.
bit in Arkansas a couple of weeks ago, and Verhulst was very clear like that Raven has come in and had an immediate impact on the roster, and he thinks that they're really heading in the right direction, and Raven has them set up to succeed very much this split, and I'm looking forward to that. I think TSM is going to be really sick. We all have Atlanta Premier in our top three.
And we were
Surprised
all in
at that.
Philadelphia.
We were
so
all in
that's so crazy.
Philadelphia.
All in Philadelphia.
I got to see them in Arkansas a couple of weeks ago. Where are you guys at on that team, Dia?
I actually I struggled with putting Atlanta Premier up there
Really?
because I think they're a really good team. But I think that this particular pick, especially given how things had gone for them previously, I know that they had a lot of back and forth last year as a roster. That really hampered my faith in them. And I think that right now I'm putting them in the top three because I think that the three that I have listed are the most consistent teams. And even if you sub out Furia for the esports arena that I have, I still think that's true. I think that Atlanta Premier are... I'm going to start a new point. I think
Okay.
this lobby is extremely emotional. I think Group B is like the nursery of this season, where you have a lot of teams that if they lose, they're just going to lose their minds. Rosters are going to fall apart. People are going to be toxic on Twitter. It's going to be crazy. Like Group B, watch this for drama. And I think that Atlanta Premier just
Fair.
don't really have that, so they're going to do well. I think they're going to be silently putting along. Everybody else is going to be yelling at each other, and they're going to finish top three.
Yeah, I would say
Clipping
personally,
that.
I think
That, clip that so I can post it on the subreddit.
I personally think that I think Enemy is just such a good fit for this roster.
Yes.
They still have some things to figure out, and Hill has been honest and vocal about that on socials and stuff, that I think Hill has not been super satisfied with some of their recent results and feels like they have to kind of sort some things out. But I think that Enemy just fits in so well with this roster, and while I don't necessarily view Enemy's ceiling as high as an individual player as like a Verhulst, Enemy does feel like that new young talent in that similar vein for this year. And I've gotten to watch Enemy play a ton, and I think with Hill and Crook on this team, he can really flourish.
I think that it says a lot that with our top three, including Dark Horse, that both of the youngest players in this group make that list for all of us, with Atlanta Premier and Esports Arena being on all of our lists. Yeah, I think that...
I think it's interesting.
Yeah, I think that the new young talent that's in Group B is something that all of us are expecting to have an impact, and a positive one, on the quality of the scene.
I will qualify my Esports Arena pick because I very intentionally had them at Dark Horse because of the Capra situation that's been going on. Now, as far as we are aware, Capra will play for the team at the very least in week one. Where it goes from there, who the hell knows? Because once Capra plays week one, technically Esports Arena then can make adjustments if they see fit. I don't know that they want to do that. Maybe they want to continue to play with Capra. I am not aware of what the dynamics are of that situation behind the scenes, but it has looked very volatile, at least from Capra's perspective. I have a lot of confidence in Phony and Fury. I think that they're just two incredibly consistent players and very, very talented, and they have the track record to show that they can perform well. my entire esports arena prediction is just, where does this Capra situation go? Does he continue to play with the team, and can they continue to show the form that we saw from them early on with this roster, or do they have to make adjustments, and what happens there? And, they could certainly bring in a third and continue to succeed there, but it's just such a very weird situation for this team.
Yeah, I think that even if Capra were to leave, and I honestly, if I were Capra, I wouldn't, because Esports Arena is like that team, the Phony and Fury that you talked about. Yeah. It's I just think it's such one of the things that makes Esports Arena really powerful is that backbone they have with Fury and Phony. And I think that even if Capra were to leave, Fury and Phony have the experience and the versatility and the patience that not a lot of other teams have to pick up another fragger who is of really any temperament and make that work. I think those players are so good and difficult to dislike.
Yeah.
That you can get the most emotional young player. It doesn't matter, because as long as they're mechanically talented, they're going to work well.
They played really well with Enemigo a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Looked really damn good there.
I wouldn't mind Enemigo.
Anything you want to add on the Esports Arena point before we jump to Group C, or anything else you want to hit on, Zephyr, for this group?
Solid. They're solid, and the only reason they sit as a dark horse for me is because they're teams that have displayed more regular amounts of success recently among the other pros. I think a dark horse is, to say the least, just because I needed another slot at this point to touch on them, because they needed to be touched on.
Fair enough. Let's jump to Group C. For our audio-only listeners, my picks were Optic, the Guard, 100 Thieves with Luminosity as my dark horse. Zephyr took Space Station, Optic, and FaZe Clan with the Guard as his dark horse. And then DiA took the Guard, Optic, Luminosity with First Attempt as his dark horse. Zephyr, where do you want to start?
Oh, that's hard. Where do you want me to start here on this one? We're all
dealer's choice, my friend. Yes, we're all on the Optic train, and DiA and I are on the Guard train. But outside of that, there is a lot of variance. This is seemingly one of the most diverse groups.
I'll start this. Why are you guys not like on the same? You laugh at me. Why are you guys not on the same Space Station train? What is the deal with that? SSG's legit.
Oh yeah, I think they're really good. I told them they're really good. I think they're an awesome team. I don't think that they're top 3 in Split 1, but I think they're a great team.
They're my 4th place.
Yeah, I think that the reason, I think that again, and I've talked about this a lot today, but because I think that the meta is going to change, Space Station are a really good team, but I think they're a really good team because Space Station they do something that almost no other roster does, where they know exactly how they want to play the game, and then you watch them and they play it exactly that way. Space Station don't panic. They don't suddenly change their game plan because they're down a few points. They just keep going. And it's what makes them an incredible roster and one of the most consistent in North America. And it's also what, in the face of a new season, could ultimately make them have a difficult Split 1. Because they're going to take a while to adapt. They're going to be slow about it. And then when they get there, they're going to farm. But they're going to farm consistently. They're not like like I had SC as my dark horse for last time. I don't think Space Station are just going to have a really great week where all their business deals have come together, whatever people do in their free time, and then they're just going to pop off. I think that they're just going to show up every week, put in the work, and do pretty well, but not quite top the leaderboards in Split 1 because everybody else is going crazy. Once things settle down, Space Station will do well.
Don't think there is a level of consistency that is replicated, though, here among some of these other teams to the same level as Space Station, and I actually don't think the highest highs for these other rosters are as intense as we're describing. Yes, there may be the one-off situation where someone like Optic walks away with a very, very successful start and they're having to play catch-up the entire time, but that kind of enduring factor of SSG and the fact that they are replicative in their success is the reason why they should be at the very tippity top, at least in my personal opinion here.
I think that you saying that Optic isn't as consistent as Space isn't
or doesn't have
nearly
as high of
consistent as
highs as
Yeah,
SSG.
What are you saying? What?
I don't think
Optic was literally the
Optic-
best North American team across the entirety of last year in North America.
Go ahead, Zephyr, go ahead.
I think Optic recently, I think Optic and Space Station are right there for me, genuinely.
Okay.
But I think Optic recently, particularly in the last few months, has been very back and forth regarding their success.
Okay.
More so than any other roster that has seen a level of consistency in the past. I mean, we go what? I think Oversight. I can literally look it up. Yeah, they literally go back and forth for weeks here from having first place finishes to literally 17th and below. And it's like, what is going on? I think ever since the finalization of year 2 and what we brought into champs, they have been extremely volatile as a roster, and it's the fact that they have those extreme high highs that has kept them at the top.
I think yeah, you know what? I see what you're saying. I also agree that this is not a team that finishes 10th really. They're either in an individual game, they're either finishing 19th or in
If you ain't
in
first,
top
you're
four.
last, DiA.
If it ain't first or last.
But I do think that they play I do think that they find those wins a lot more consistently than other squads. And that's where Optic's consistency comes from. I will also say that when compared to other rosters, there is not a single person on Optic that I wouldn't trust to close out a game. This is a little bit of hyperbole, but if you split up this roster into 3 individual players and added them on to the 3 groups, Group A, Group B, Group C, again, hyperbole, but I don't think any of them would finish outside the top 7. As individual players in this lobby. They're just ridiculously good.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
And I think that mechanical skill, I think that trust that Optic have in each other helps them get a lot more wins than other rosters, and in finding those wins more frequently, that is why they are so consistent.
I just think over time, if I had to compare the two over split 1, I think having relative solid performances in top 5 versus the kind of boop 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 we've seen from Optic, I think just mathematically, logically, I think Space Station may oversee them at some point.
Go ahead, Y4SO. I have
the point I was going to make was I see Optic in a similar way to kind of the point that Zephyr was making about Furia, where I think Optic play their best when it matters most, excluding, granted, their finish to champs, because they did not show up at the end of champs. That was a very public. Yeah, they absolutely failed at the end of that tournament. So, and I think that criticism of that performance is completely warranted. Outside of that, though, I think Optic plays their best when it matters most, and this is not a roster that waits. It doesn't matter most at the end of the split and going into playoffs. Look at their performances last year. They were week after week after week really fucking good in Pro League. And when it comes to that, as compared to an Oversight or an Esports Arena Pro Night and other events, they find that form as soon as the highest level of competition starts. And for me, that's the week 1 of Pro League. So I think this team is going to come in and return to that form. It may take a week, but I think they will return to that high level form that we expect of them very quickly.
There's something to say, the fact that all 3 of us have Optic in our top 3.
Yes.
I mean, there you go.
Yeah. I also think that the points system in the ALGS favors them, where it's not cumulative points over the course of the season from what you get on the day, but instead your placement on the day is translated into points, because it forgives Optic's weakness of having some games or some weeks even, where they place a little bit lower in those points, because instead you're able to get top 2, top 3 twice on the day, and now you're in 4th on the day, and that translates just the same as getting 4th with 3 million points.
But
you know what I'm saying?
but it also nerfs the days when Optic literally just run train on the lobby and
That's
hit
true.
triple digits in a single day of competition. So like they get love on both ends of that spectrum because or they get hit on both ends of that spectrum because Optic is really talented. Let's move
We've
on from
also-
Optic, or go if you want to make a final point here. Do you hit it?
I was going to do exactly the same thing, so go for it.
Oh, because I wanted to hit on Zephyr putting FaZe Clan in his top 3. Because when I look at this group, I have a very defined top 5, bottom 5. And my top 5 is Optic, The Guard, 100 Thieves, SSG, Luminosity. Bottom 5, first attempt, slept on, FaZe Clan, Oxygen, Sentinels. So I'm very curious, what have you seen, Zephyr, that has you buying in on this FaZe Clan roster? And like, granted, they bring the name value. You've got a Snipe Down, you've got an Albralele, you've got a Slurpee. What are
Where do
you
you get
seeing
your
from this
copium?
team?
Where do I get my copium?
I mean, I wasn't gonna hit it right
It's
between the
definitely-
eyes with that, but why the fuck not?
It's definitely. It's definitely. I definitely am hyped to begin with,
Sure.
which is it influences a little bit. But I also do think that individually there are some extremely talented players on that roster that, given the opportunity to find a mesh, can really hoist themselves above the remaining teams in this lobby. And I think, while relatively speaking recently it hasn't been at their best, I mean, I think it's just putting them back in the performance to potentially find that. Now, granted, it's currently technically unconfirmed who, will be the third for that
Sure.
roster. But as Albralele potentially comes into it, I think, personally, it's going to be a rough start, but they're definitely a team I see within that top 5. I think they're less where I set up Space Station Optic and more definitely around the Luminosities and 100 Thieves and them,
Okay.
right? Competing for that middle section there.
Mm.
And I think this is also kind of where I come from. As I start breaking down these other individual rosters, everyone except for the Guard, I am not explicitly as confident right now in where they will end up, right? Between 100 Thieves, Lumosity, right? I those two especially, because they're kind of like the cusp of what you guys have right there. I just don't see the same relative success that I would long term.
Okay.
I miss Enemy Go, to say the least.
Yeah. I think that FaZe Clan's success is going to depend on entirely how much therapy Snipe Down and Albralele have gone through to get out of their previous IGLing situations, because they're very good players, but everybody has been watching C9 burn and really enjoying it, and Albralele was a big part of that. Snipe Down, obviously, despite having a good relationship ultimately at TSM, had a lot of differences with Hal, and these are two players who I think are very smart and or talented when touching the buttons, But I think that they are going to panic. I think they're going to panic a lot in these lobbies.
Okay.
Because of that.
Yeah. I have not just really been all that impressed with what I've seen so far from FaZe. And it is especially worse because the name value gives me high expectations. Granted, I know that Snipe Down has been competing in Halo since the release of Infinite, but he's also been playing Apex on a fairly consistent basis during that time. Like, it's still a game that he would stream fairly frequently, so it's not like he's completely rusty. SlurpyG, super sick player, and Alb, very talented player with a ton of history and a ton of very good results. So I had high expectations, and while there certainly will be that bit of time that it takes for a roster to mesh, it has the early results for this roster has been, I would say, significantly worse than I would expect from them, and that has me fairly low on this team. Why are you so high on first attempt here or are you that high? Where is kind of your dark horse feeling for this team?
Yeah, I mean, I think first attempt have an amigo for now. So
You're kind of
That
liking that
same
Enemigo to
reason why
Esports
Luminosity-
Arena move, huh?
That's why Luminosity's not in my top 3 right now.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
lost the Enemigo bump.
yeah, I also think Bronzy and Saucer are smart about the game. I think that in a group like this, first attempt outside of the top 3 that I have right now, because I don't have FaZe Clan in there. I would say that the 4s and 5s are FaZe Clan, maybe 100 Thieves, and then slept on the first attempt.
Okay.
Like that, you cut out this middle section of the group, and so first attempt, I
Put
believe,
Oxygen Sentinels at the bottom.
yeah.
Biggest fall
And
off, by the way, of the offseason is this Sentinels roster.
Yeah, we didn't talk about
yeah.
that, but that's kind of huge. Anyways, continue.
No, and so I think that where Slept On are going to have a more difficult time adapting. I think that, as we can all agree, they're clearly a roster in flux. I think they've got good building blocks. They will probably get a lot more success in Split 2. Split 1's probably going to be rough for them. I think that first attempt, because they have more experience, should do a lot better comparatively. And I mean, if they're on their game, they could take the place of one of the teams that I have top 3. Does that make sense? Yeah,
I'm with you there. I mean, this group's a little odd for me, I would say. It has some particular standouts, but there seems to be more of a gap when we start kind of breaking it down. It doesn't kind of flow in terms of the talent here. I'm very excited to see the guard, though. Obviously, they sit in my dark horse pick, and obviously you guys have them rated potentially very high to perform. I also think the guard's going to find their success. I think I'm just waiting to see how it matches up. They've been through some really tough situations here recently, and I just want to see if they come back and strike the iron while it's hot, right? I think I was very in between FaZe and the guard here for my kind of 3.
Yeah, so why don't you talk to me about your guard and 100 Thieves picks before I say my piece on the guard, because I'm super biased.
He's hot. I know. They're all hot too.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah. I like Keon. I think it is a nice fit for the roster here. Of course, we could talk endlessly about like Rambo's performance last year, especially when you add in what he was able to do with GMT at Champs and that impressive run there. I just like that Torrent roster was one of the most kind of pleasant surprises to an extent. I don't know that they were super surprising, but one of the most pleasant surprises of last year in North America, and I really enjoyed watching the team. And just again, when I like look at this group and I have my set kind of top 5, bottom 5, I do not have a lot of faith in those teams in the bottom 5, and I'm just a little bit more of a fan of this guard team and in buying in on their potential a little bit more than I am on Space Station, which I know that Zephyr is opposite of in this instance, but I really like the guard. And also 100 Thieves, I'm just leaning on this team continuing to do what they did last year. I think Vaxlon was such a wonderful addition to the team. I do not put the struggles of that roster squarely on the shoulders of Vayne, but the adjustment of bringing Vaxlon in to replace Vayne revitalized this roster in a wonderful way, and I think they will continue to be able to find that form, and I think they have a big opportunity to be a big power player in this group.
I think that's fair. It's interesting. I think you have 100 Thieves for a similar reason that Zephyr has Space Station.
Sure.
I think that's
Yeah. I see those two rosters as being very, very comparable.
I think 100 Thieves likes to play a little bit more with the meta than Space Station. There are more flexible exploring options, whereas, as you kind of brought up earlier, Space Station is very kind of set in what they do, and then they do it well. And even if it isn't the peak of what they could be performing with, they draw out the consistency in it to, allow themselves. Whereas 100 Thieves, they try to kind of search for what opportunities might benefit them, and sometimes, as we saw with last split, it pushes them to be better than the rest.
I'd agree. I just wanted to touch on the guard very quickly. I know that you guys talked about it already, which is good. But I think that with Rambo and RKN sort of going separate ways in champs, I think they both grew a lot as players in their confidence. Like I said, super biased. I follow these players a lot, and having seen them talk to each other recently, I think their communication has improved, and their awareness of their own weaknesses. Both of those players has really improved. I think Keon is a great addition to the roster, but the core of this roster really depends on how RKN and Rambo are communicating, because that's where things can fall apart. I think they've done a really good job of addressing that in the offseason. And RKN is especially because he is going to be the IGL. From how he illustrated his experience at champs, I think has matured a lot in knowing what risks are worth it to take and being more confident in taking risks than they were with the Torrent squad last year.
Okay. I think that wraps our discussion, unless, Zephyr, you had anything you really wanted to hit on there for Group C at the end.
No.
Let's, we're already at
NA,
an hour and 40 minutes.
NA less than E.
Somebody had to do it. We're already at an hour and 40 minutes, gents. So let's jump into, and this I can't imagine will be a very long discussion, so I will prompt the folks in chat right now. We are going to do Q&A after we talk about the new season. So if you have any questions that you have for myself, Zephyr, and DiA, slam them in the chat right now, because we'll be hitting those here very soon. But let's talk Season 15. The new patch dropped earlier this week. We've got a brand new map. We've got a brand new legend. But I would say a very thin patch in terms of, I take that as a compliment, by the way, Clinical. Thank you very much.
You do.
Go Birds, baby. Go Birds. A very thin patch in terms of legends, because there literally are no legend updates here.
We have stickers now, so
Yeah. What?
Yeah.
First blush, DiA. What are your thoughts on Season 15?
I thought somebody brought up an interesting point earlier. First of all, I wish there were ranked changes, because those wouldn't really affect comp.
We'll get to
but-
it.
Yeah. Well, we can talk about that in here. I just eliminated the topic,
okay.
so we can just wrap it in this
All right,
Season
all right,
15
all right.
discussion.
Yeah.
So go ahead, DiA.
I think it could have used a touch up. Am I still gonna play the game? Yes. But I think ranked could use an update, and it's something that won't affect comp. In terms of legend changes and stuff, sorry, Zephyr, I'll
Is he raising his hand? Is that what you're doing?
Yeah.
No, I was just feeling my wall.
Oh, it looked like you were raising your hand to get called on.
Sorry.
I think that our map rotation is really nice, and that's fun. Broken Moon, Olympus, World's Edge should be good. But I think that in terms of not having a lot of legend changes, I don't agree with the move, but I understand the move a lot more, because somebody, I don't remember who it was, somebody smarter than me, when everybody was complaining about the patch notes, said that, yeah, well, Pro League's starting soon, and you'd hate to see a lot of changes right before Pro League, and we would be complaining about that anyway, so it makes sense that they didn't. Also, are we going to talk about Pro League and the client?
Oh yeah, that's kind
something
of
that I
information
missed.
we
Is that-
have.
Okay, so no,
Yeso doesn't have that information.
I don't think we should talk about it.
nor
But
does the public either.
Yeah, there's
I
other
was
stuff
just
that
like,
we'll talk about.
what did I
later.
miss here?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's other stuff. There's other
There's
stuff
other
to talk
stuff
about.
behind the scenes, but we actually, well,
All right, we're
No,
ending the
it-
show
it's-
here,
it's
folks.
fine,
Have
it's
a good
fine,
one.
it's
We'll see you
fine,
later.
It's we don't know. We don't. Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
But releasing a bunch of changes before Pro League carries risk, as every Apex patch does. And so I understand the decision not to change a whole lot with the new legend, with the new map.
So
Yeah.
it's actually very funny. I just came, as you were like starting to make that point, I came to that epiphany thinking about the lack of legend changes, because I all of a sudden thought about it in a League of Legends esports context, and was like, I was like, oh, right before Pro League, I was like, wait, it's probably not a good idea to make drastic legend changes the week of the start of Pro League. I was like, that's probably a good decision. I mean, as a casual player, I probably would have liked to see it, but it does make sense, especially because in Apex, they don't do what they do in League of Legends, where you're almost never in professional league esports playing on the actual live patch. In esports, you're almost always playing on the prior patch. So there is that patch comes out, you get time to play on it quite a bit in scrims or in ranked before playing it in your actual matches. And Apex doesn't do that, right? You play on the live patch. So I think you make a great point there, though I guess I would have loved to see something maybe mid-season 14, them visit some of these legends that need some adjustments. In terms of the adjustments we got in weapons and kind of the floor loot and kind of all that stuff, yeah, it's fine. Mastiff coming back to the floor is cool. Like, I like the Mastiff. The new map is wonderful. I love it. I was playing it a bunch last night. Super fun. Catalyst, definitely a legend that is not in the, release a legend super powerful, so everybody wants to play it. They're definitely taking the strategy of let's make the legend hot so everybody wants to play it, and we'll let her be a little less powerful and see how it works out. So Catalyst definitely needs some love in terms of a PowerPoint, but I do like her kit. I think it's cool. I don't know that I'm looking forward to an eventual meta of Catalyst and Caustic being on the same team. That sounds toxic, but the new legend's cool, new map's awesome, and we'll see kind of where it goes from here.
I think very simply with season 15, I think a lot of people are a little quick to point out its faults when I mean it's one of the bigger updates that we have gotten, and I think while nothing has particularly really screamed at us that's like, oh, this is so good, Catalyst is so fun, Broken Moons, and like everything's very good. Everything came out. I wish we could have seen a little bit of a ranked tweak that would have had its impacts to kind of maybe amp us a little bit on our way forward through the season. But other than that, I mean, give credit to Respawn where it's due. Whole new ass fucking map. Catalyst comes out, the minor bugs, etc. Right? I love this point from Lennox. It's perfect. The weapons meta, in my opinion, I agree as well, has been in a very good spot in comparison to previous seasons. I think just minor tweaks and a few iterations, and everything feels particularly good and usable. So in that regard, awesome. And then obviously with ALGS coming up, of course we don't see changes. With Sears Heirloom coming out soon, of course we don't see him nerfed. I mean, it's obvious.
Yeah. I think that makes sense.
I think to touch on your point with the weapon meta, I really liked what they did with the Rampage and the Sentinel, where because both those weapons were feeling really weak. I don't know if it solves the Rampage's core problem, but it does make it feel a lot better. Sentinel definitely now is a lot better of an option. Before it was like, if you're not running longbow, I don't know what you're doing, but because you can actually maintain some charge on the Sentinel now, I think you've got some good stuff. They also changed ring close timers just a little bit, and I think that change is pretty good. I think for comp, I think that they're trying to find that sweet spot, and they pushed it a little too far last time. Everybody adjusted, but I like that they've pulled it back a bit.
I think nothing's particularly exciting, and that's why everyone kind of like jumps on a little bit. Obviously, it's kind of weird that we're not as obsessed with the new map, but maybe I've had my fill of Apex to a degree, so I've only.
He's been on the
like
Overwatch train.
Yeah.
Wait. We can't get Zephyr to play ranked with us.
Wait, guys, I have a question for both of you. Did you guys read the bug fixes?
Okay, I'm scrolling down.
Fixed an issue where a zip line was missing in the building on North Pad. Do you guys remember that?
Oh,
we were all playing together, and I brought everyone over. I was like, look at this.
I don't know if Zephyr was in that game with us, but I was playing with you. I think we were we were playing with your friend last week, DiA, and you were like, there's supposed to be a zipline here.
Yes,
Alright.
yes. I
Well,
don't
your
know
friend that is not Zephyr. Is
Yeah,
what I meant.
All right,
Sorry,
guys. I'll go back to playing Cassidy. I have to ask chat now, though. Obviously, we've discussed a little bit about this season 15, but we'd love to hear from y'all. This is a little bit of a longer podcast, so let's wrap it up with some questions. Questions from chat.
And before we pull our first question, do want to give a special shout out to our mutual friend and colleague, Spider Tiff. We got the announcement this morning. We all woke up to see Tiff on Pro League, which is awesome.
That's a win.
She is wonderful. She is very good at what she does.
Addition.
Very excited to see how she fits into Pro League this year, and a wonderful addition. So big congratulations to Tiff on that achievement, and hopefully, in a year's time, the three of us are joining her. Fingers crossed.
Cheers. Thank you, Yeso.
Had to get that one in there. Do you
They're
wanna...
lucky. They're lucky I didn't force them to have a talent discussion post today, chat.
Yeah.
Dia got a veto vote on that one, so and I was right there with him.
Don't want to do it.
No.
Don't want to do it.
Do you want to hit
Alright.
the brony question first, Zephyr? Do you want to scroll back
Yes.
up to that one?
Let's
What is
do
that?
brony question right here.
Yeah.
So Deadass really quickly asks, are these correct in terms of our particular selections for My Little Pony? He thinks mine is Pinkie Pie, Yeso's is Twilight Princess, and Dia's is Rainbow Dash. You're actually wrong. Mine is, I believe, Applejack, if I'm correct.
Dia, do you have a pick?
What? I just get to pick an MLP?
So I will
Or
say
is
this:
like a personality
Yes,
test?
it is Applejack. I would totally
I have never
do
in
things.
my life consumed any My Little Pony content. I have never watched it. I've never owned a toy or whatever. I have a couple of coworkers that are bronies.
I
to
think
each their own, but
I think I'm feasibly a Rainbow Dash, right?
Wrong, you're Twilight Princess. Don't question
I'm
it.
Twilight.
Moving
Why
on.
am I Twilight Princess? Justify.
Because you totally give Twilight Princess energy.
What does that mean, bro?
that's why I can't say. I'm like, I don't know. I got a collection. No. Hey, I'm on that. Come on, Clinical. You know what train I'm on, all right? I'm on that One Piece train. I'm on that Yu Yu Hakusho train. We got the One Piece is real, baby. The One Piece is real.
All right.
Yeah. Bro, that's hot, Zephyr. That's sick.
What is that?
It's Luffy and his hockey on.
Very nice.
All right. Any other questions? We got DME Luca. What are the best teams in your opinion that didn't make it to Pro League? Teams that you expect to excel in Challenger Circuit. Blackhand. Blackhand. I was very disappointed and surprised to see Blackhand not qualify for North American Pro League. I was super excited about that roster, and I think they will dominate in Pro League. We'll have to see what happens, but or in Challenger Circuit, I should say, I want them in Pro League so bad.
Mm-hmm.
UTFT. Fix your shit.
Rip Nez.
Rip fucking
Rip
UTFT.
Nez.
Bruh. That team needs to get if I swear to God, if I watch fucking UTFT perform everywhere but where it counts, I'm really just gonna it frustrates me so much every single time. Cause we literally spend weeks and days and hours supporting what is one of the most loved teams in the community, and then when it comes to the point where they literally just have to make it work, they don't, and they just haven't, right? And it's literally all they need is a spot. Once they have that spot, that's a team that can put up a level of consistency that will net them all individually futures, right? Futures within this scene where they all go the respective ways and find success. But until they do that, it's literally like nails on a chalkboard for me every time, and it just pisses me off.
Understandable.
Anybody that you want to add in there, Dia?
I'm thinking about it. I felt like EMEA sorted out pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
RIP Project Armor. Yeah. That was
rough.
unfortunate. I think Rats had a really tough run. This is in EMEA. I think Rats had a really tough run. Through this as well. I think they do well in Challenger Circuit. In North America, I think Redeem stands out.
Yeah.
It's quite sad to see them not qualify. Shoreline Mafia showed up on the last day and had some good stuff. I don't know if they'll keep playing together, because they are, I think, bigger than a lot of other teams. Void, I expected to do a lot better. I know they expected themselves to do a lot better. Howdy, MMW, also. Yeah,
There's a lot.
yeah. I think there is a lot. I think those couple Nightmare also. Yeah, dang, we really missed out on a lot of people who placed 40.
Yeah.
Placed
It's, you know,
52nd.
it's important to remember that we've gone from 40 teams to 30. And there were only 8 spots for teams to qualify for this time around. Whereas
That's good though.
last year, I agree.
Right.
It's a good thing. But last year, I think coming in, it was 20 invites and 20 qualifying spots, if memory serves. So it is a very drastic shift. Did you have something else to add there, Dia?
I just wanted to say I think that there are less teams that I would have liked to see make it that didn't in EMEA. I think the teams that did make it did really well. But just going over that list, I wasn't like, oh wow, we're missing a lot. Whereas like I came up with almost 10 names in NA that I think could have made it based on the day.
Right.
Oh, world class.
Really quickly here, let's keep this moving.
Yep.
If they put Broken Moon in the ALGS map pool, a la Storm Point last year, what's one change you would like to see to the map before it happens?
I haven't played it yet. I'm
yeah.
in California.
I've got to play the map more. I like it a lot so far. The only thing, just like first blush, trying to throw some idea out there, I'm curious if they will adjust ring timers for that map in particular because of how large it is. Because if I believe I'm correct, ring timers are the same across all maps as of right now. I believe. No, they're different.
They are slightly different.
They are slightly different. Okay, so
Yeah, you can
I
check
think
the lapses.
it's mainly because of dropship time, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. So my thing would be you maybe need to either make the circles a little bit smaller, or adjust those ring timers because the map is large. Now, granted, I've played plenty of games and there's been plenty of early game action. How that plays out in a competitive setting, we're yet to know. But those are the only changes I can think of off the top of my head.
Actually, say that's one of the few maps where I wouldn't mind if the ring was faster. Just because the speed at which you can traverse that is so crazy.
Those zip lines are super cool.
Shared POIs plus the. I honestly love those zip lines so fucking much.
Oh, it's so fun.
I feel like they should be on literally every single map because now I'm literally spoiled. Why? How the fuck am I gonna get from containment to hillside? Wow, I referenced 2 maps at once. That is just cringe of me. How am I gonna get to containment to artillery now without my fucking super zip line? This is bullshit.
The answer is don't play Kings Canyon, but I am hearing what you're saying.
Based. Fucking based. Love it. But yeah, I think we just need more play on the map before we get an idea, but that would be, I'm with Zephyr. Just adjustments to the ring.
Why is Zephyr so hot? It's because I was built by the gods.
Good skincare routine.
Don't have one.
Yep.
A friend of the show,
Don't have one.
Tess, says, give me thoughts on Catalyst and, if she's buffed
Love
to be
Tess.
comparable, how she'll fit in the meta.
Catalyst won't fit in the meta.
I think Catalyst post-buffs will fill a similar role to, because of her kit, it's just a similar role to Acoustic, right? You just control space fairly well. And you can just deny or make entries just costly into buildings. So you just probably will occupy a similar role to that, as well as barring, with some possible buffs on her ultimate, becoming more of a harder counter to Scan Legends, because I know people have been talking about the fact that you can just toss the Seer ultimate over the top of her ultimate. I don't think that's terrible, because if somebody throws a Seer ultimate over my Catalyst ultimate, I'm just like gonna beam it immediately. So I don't think that's all that bad, but those are what I would see.
I think I want to wait for bugs to be fixed on this legend, because I don't know what's intended and what isn't. In terms of its interactions with height and buildings. But what I would love to see for Catalyst is that the wall has a... I want to know the rules on what it hits, what it jumps up on top of, and what it falls down onto, because I think that she could be incredibly powerful against this is what I thought she was going to be when she was released, was like an incredibly powerful tool against teams that like to take a lot of space, because you can wall to separate half a fight and then ape someone. And I think that if Catalyst moves into the pro meta at all, it'll be for that reason, because I don't think you get to replace Caustic, and you can just lock the doors the same with Rampart, who's already got an actual ultimate. So
yeah, I think Catalyst's ultimate is the biggest downside to where she currently is as a legend. If there were I would actually like to see more like decisive, hard changes to that ult before I would even start to bring up Catalyst in terms of competitive setting. Because as Dia's brought up, there are just other legends who are more efficient and flexible in comparison to Catalyst. Catalyst feels too awkward. It doesn't fit every situation effectively, and it's the reason why we saw, most notably, Newcastle, who is very similar. Newcastle is stronger than Catalyst, but he is very particular in the situations that make him effective for long-term endgames and big success. And we saw literally Newcastle comes out, the buff comes through for that next patch, his playing comp goes, and then it goes, 100 Thieves, right? And that's it. And now no one touches it. And it's because they're just better picks that are more flexible. And that is like, when it comes to comp, you need to have the ease of access to find success regularly. Catalyst doesn't do that.
Yeah, I for right now, waiting on bugs and adjustments to the legend, I would have liked them. I would have liked to see them be a little bit more useful offensively, because right now I think it is really the ult is the only thing that might hold that together.
Yeah.
And as a defensive character, they leave a lot to be desired still. But we'll see. It's definitely workable. I wouldn't mind a little more mobility on the legend, and I'm gonna stop there because nobody needs to hear my stupid game design ideas.
Give her the ability to have like ferrofluid, like if she steps around her own ferrofluid, gives her speed boost.
That
would be
was
awesome.
That was literally the thought I just had. Like, let her have an offensive use for her, maybe even for her team, right? Maybe it acts like the Jace gate in League, where you place it down and the team runs through it and they get a speed boost. If your team runs through your own ferrofluid, you a little speed buff or something.
How terrifying would that be too? Like, you wall and then you all run through it at the same time.
That'd be so good. If the wall was a debuff, like let's take this not her ferrofluid, it's just like her ult as a whole. Her ult is a debuff to anyone else that's an enemy that runs through it, but to your team, they get infused with the power of ferrofluid, and they either can get an extra defensive fortification chunk to fuck with teams, or they move quicker, or we just make more bullshit crazy ideas to try to force Catalyst into the meta.
Tess, holy shit, wait, y'all are genius. Yeah, I just think there are cool things that you can definitely do with her kit and with the fluid. Yeah, that would be
It's just
interesting.
Venom at this point.
Yeah. Any final questions before we close out the show? Thank you
Any
as well,
last
Deadass.
thoughts,
Glad you
chat?
enjoyed the show.
Yeah. Just a reminder to everyone in chat, we do host this every single Thursday, and we're very pleased to have Dia on this time around.
Yes, we are.
Between both me and Y4SO. It's been a blessing. But we also upload all of these podcasts on many, many platforms for your tickling of the ears.
Yep. It'll be up this afternoon on YouTube, Anchor.fm, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, so you could check it out on all of those platforms today.
Oh my God, we didn't talk about the Hyperlux tournament finals that are tonight.
Okay, last question, real fast, because
Last question, really quick.
We're at
Last
2
question.
hours. Hyperlux, DiA,
Oh, Lord.
favorites for tonight.
I don't know. Give me a second.
Quickly, everyone look up the
forgotten.
Hyperlux tournament.
Yeah,
I know, I'm pulling up the
exactly.
Wikipedia right now.
Everyone, we've been. It's kind of hard. Like we went from like everything being very aggressive regarding like, Apex with preseason quals to now we got to look at this. All right, Energy, TL, Furia, SSG, G2, MPL, Lumosity, TSM, The Guard, Cloud9, CLG, Complexity, Esports Runner Sentinels, FaZe, Optic, Atlanta Premier, Tripods, First Attempt, Black Hand. TL, done.
R.I.P. Blackhand.
I'm taking Energy.
Wait, no, Energy,
TSM,
Energy,
yeah.
duh.
Yeah.
Energy,
Moving on.
TSM.
Done.
Yeah, you're
Done.
trolling. I'm really wondering how the Guard will play us.
Yeah.
You're cringe. Bias. Moving on.
No, well, I think it's going to be really indicative of their performance throughout the season.
Also,
I would second
Tripod's
the
bottom
Energy
5.
prediction.
Tripod's bottom 5. I'm calling that one too.
Tripods, bottom 20.
That's rough. That's rough. Come on, guys. Come on. They're they're humans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey,
They're
I
a
can-
Challenger Circuit level team in Pro League.
I can. My criticism of them does not have to do with any hate or.
Oh, it's just an analyst,
I just
strict
think they're gonna finish bottom 5 in this lobby.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, Energy are going to do well. The reason that I say I'm curious about the Guard is because, well, yes, obviously I'm biased, but also I think it'll be really indicative of how they finish off this split. And for somebody who predicted them as being top 3 in the split, I sure hope it goes well for them.
I definitely think that this lobby will be a very good litmus test for the start of Pro League this weekend.
Yeah, the pre-Pro League.
Yeah. All right. That is going to do it for us here, folks. Wrapping up episode 3. DiA, thank you so much for coming to join us, my friend. Where can the folks find you and check out your stuff?
You can find me at esports_DiA on Twitter.
Awesome.
And also on Twitch, but I don't really stream on Twitch, so just follow me on Twitter and I'll tweet. I love you. And hey, also chat was really good today. I know we didn't bring up all of the points that they made, but there were some really good ones and there was some good discussion going on there. So I just wanted to appreciate you because y'all had your brains on. It was awesome.
Yeah. Shout out to chat. DiA, thank you so much for coming on. We'll definitely have DiA on again. Probably as often as we can drag him on here. Let's be honest. We'll definitely have him on to go back and revisit our predictions after this split. But thank you so much. We'll be back again next week, folks. Remember, next Thursday afternoon, 12:30 p.m. Pacific time. And remember, if you missed any or all of today's episode, make sure to check it out on YouTube, Anchor.fm, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. We'll have them up there soon. But thank you so much, folks. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and we will see you later.
See you.